Hello everyone, so today we are going to explain about Cambridge curriculum and English language teaching. So before we move to the material, we will introduce ourselves first. My name is Divan Ugraheni, student number 231214063.
And my name is Gusti Ayu Ketutrismawati with student number 086.
Okay, so my name is Joshua Kevin Fitzpacifica Tombelaka, and people usually call me Kevin, and my student number is 23-121-4066.
Hello everyone, my name is Kalista Morasiwi. You can call me Kalista. My student number 23-12-14-004.
Okay, so I will explain about what the Cambridge curriculum is. So Cambridge curriculum is an international curriculum developed by Cambridge Assessment International Education. This curriculum is widely used in many countries, and this curriculum focuses on developing student skills. So this is not only developing their knowledge but also their skills. And Cambridge curriculum doesn't only focus on what students learn, but more importantly on how students think. And Cambridge curriculum emphasizes critical thinking, problem solving, and global perspective. And also this curriculum encourages deep learning, so students are not just memorizing information, but they are trained to analyze, ask questions, and apply what they learn in real situation. And for the example, in an English class, instead of just memorizing vocabulary, students will be asked to analyze a text or maybe explain the meaning, or they are asked to give their own opinions about something like that. And then let's move to the next slide, which is the global purpose and the context of the Cambridge curriculum. So this curriculum is designed for a student to prepare for a globalized world, and this is developed independent learners, critical thinkers, and global citizens. So students are not only learning academic content, but also developing an important skill for the future. And the Cambridge curriculum is used in international context in learning by using global issues such as climate change, economic problems, technology, and etc. For example, in English class, students might read texts about global issues like environmental problems or cultural differences, and then they will be discussing about their opinions. And this activity helps students to become more open-minded and also able to think across cultures. So the main goal in here is to build global awareness and cross-cultural understanding. And now I will explain about the core philosophy of the Cambridge curriculum. So there are three main ideas, which are learner-centered learning, and the second is inquiry-based learning, and the last is deep learning. So first, learner-centered learning it means that students are the center of the learning process. In this, teacher acts as a facilitator, and students are asked to active in class. And the second is inquiry-based learning. So in this, the learnings will start with a question. So the students are encouraged to explore, investigate, and find answer by themselves. For example, a teacher will be asked questions like, what is your opinion about blah blah blah, or how is this situation are similar to real life, and blah blah blah. And then students discuss in groups, share ideas, and then they will be present their answer. And the third is deep learning. That means students focus on understanding concept, not just memorizing the fact. And the next is comparison and key takeaway of the Cambridge curriculum. So, in traditional learning, the focus is usually in content and memorization, and the teacher plays a dominant role in explaining the material. But in Cambridge curriculum, the focus is on skills, especially on their critical thinking and problem solving. So students are asked to be more active in class. And the most important difference is that Cambridge align learning goals, teaching method, and assessment. So students are not only tested on what they remember, but also on how they think and apply their knowledge. For example, instead of give the student a multiple choice question, the student will be work in projects or presentation or maybe case studies. So the key takeaway is Cambridge is not just a curriculum, but this is a system that develops student thinking skills and prepares students to become more independent, critical, and they will be adaptable in learning. And the next slide will be presented by Gusti.
Next, I will explain about learner attributes in the Cambridge curriculum. So, in the Cambridge curriculum, there is main learner attributes. First is confident. Students are encouraged to speak and share their idea. They're not afraid to make a mistake. For example, even if they're not sure about the answer, they still try to answer the question or give their opinion. And second is responsible. Students are responsible for their own learning, so they don't wait for the teacher. For example, they do their homework by themselves and manage their time. And third is reflective. This means students think about their learning. For example, students after a test, students look at their mistakes and try to understand the mistakes. So they think about their learning. And fourth is innovative. Students are creative and can think of new idea. For example, when they doing a project, they can present it in a unique way or different way. And last one is engage. Students are active in class. They join the discussion, they ask the question, and respond to their friends. So in the class, not only the teacher is share the opinion, the student must share the opinion too. So overall, Cambridge wants students to be active, critical, and independent. And next, I will explain about classroom structure. In the Cambridge, the classroom structure is different from the traditional classroom because first, it is student-centered. So the focus is on the students, not the teacher. The teacher is more like the facilitator. For example, the teacher doesn't just explain everything, but ask the students to share their idea or opinion. And second is interactive learning. There are a lot of discussion and group work. So students work together in a groups and share their answer, their opinion, their idea. So there is communication in between students and students, not only students and teacher. And third is flexible activity. Students don't just sit and listen all the time. They can present it in front of the class or do an activity. So they don't just come to the class, sit and listen to the teacher. And fourth is inquiry-based learning. Students learn by asking a question. For example, the teacher might ask, "What do you think about this? Why do you think this happens? What your opinion?" And students try to find the answer together or they reflect that question. So the classroom is more active, dynamic, and communicative.
Okay, so thank you, Gusti, for the explanation. Now we'll move on to the learning strategies in Cambridge Classroom. So in Cambridge Classroom, learning strategies focus on creating an active and student-centered learning environment. This means that students are not only expected to listen to the teacher, but they are also encouraged to participate actively in the learning process. So instead of relying mainly on lectures, teachers apply different strategies that allow students to explore ideas and develop their understanding through interaction. Some of the most common learning strategies used are inquiry-based learning, collaborative learning, and problem-based learning. Inquiry-based learning encourages students to ask questions and investigate topics more deeply. Collaborative learning allows students to work together in groups so they can share ideas, discuss different perspectives, and learn from each other. Meanwhile, meanwhile, problem-based learning presents students with real or realistic problems that require them to analyze situation and find the best solution possible. Through these strategies, the main goal is not just memorizing information from textbooks, but helping students develop critical thinking skills, creativity, and deeper understanding of the subject matter. Now we'll move on to the classroom learning activities. To support these learning strategies, Cambridge Classroom uses many interactive and engaging learning activities. These activities are designed to make students more involved in the learning process and encourage them to think actively. Let's say, for example, students may participate in group discussions where they share their opinions and respond to ideas from their classmates. They may also do presentations where they explain a topic to the class, which helps them improve both their understanding and their communication skills. Other activities include case studies, experiments, and problem solving tasks. These activities challenge students to analyze situations, apply what they have learned, and work collaboratively with others. In this type of classroom, the teacher's role changed from being the main source of the knowledge to becoming a facilitator of the learning. The teacher guides discussions, asks questions that stimulate their thinking, and also helps students reflect on their ideas. And as a result, the focus of learning is not only on getting the correct answer, but also understanding on the thinking process behind it. Now we'll move on to the metacognition. So first of all, what is metacognition? Well, metacognition is a very important concept in modern education. Simply put, metacognition means thinking about our own thinking or being aware of how we learn. Let's see. When students develop metacognitive skill, they become more aware of their learning processes. They start to understand what strategies work best for them and what difficulties they might face during learning. Metacognition usually involves three main concepts. The first is self-awareness, where students recognize their strengths and weaknesses in their learning. The second one is component is self-regulation. This refers to the ability to students to plan, monitor, and adjust their learning strategies. And then the third component is reflection. While reflection allows students to evaluate what they have learned, what strategies were effective, and what they can improve in the future. By practicing metacognition, students gradually become more independent and responsible learners. And then we move on to metacognition in classroom practice. So in classroom practice, Metacognition can be developed through various reflective activities that encourage students to think about their own learning process. One common method is the use of learning journals. I'm sorry. In the learning journal, students write about what they have learned during their lesson, what concepts they found interesting, and what difficulties they experienced. This activity helps students organize their thoughts and become more aware of their learning process. Teachers may also ask a reflection question at the end of the lesson. For example, students might be asked questions such as, what did you learn today? Which part was the most challenging? Or what strategies did you use to understand the material? And through these reflection activities, students are encouraged to analyze their learning process and identify ways to improve. Over time, this practice helps students develop stronger learning strategies, become more confident in their abilities, and take greater responsibilities of their own learning. One of my example of experiencing the metacognition is from international curriculum class, which I've taken with Mr. Marcus. By the end of every lesson, Mr. Marcus always provides us the reflective question, and we'll always have to submit it by the end of the day. And Mr. Marcus also responds to each of every our reflective journals in every lessons in every week. So that's all from me. And next will be explained by Kalista.
Hello everyone. As we now have to conduct a Cambridge curriculum in class with those many things to done in class for students or outside of the class, at the end of the product they will present in front of class. So as students, like right now, I'm usually felt like I'm boring and I'm disengaged with the class. Why should I listen to all of my presentation, all of my friends' presentation, rather than I'll do anything that will be more valuable for me? So let's see, here are the tips for us as a future teacher who will conduct a Cambridge curriculum to make our students engaged in class. Before we start to know the tips on how to make your students engage in class, let's break down some reason why they look like lazy with your class. Are they really lazy to learn together with you or what? The first one, maybe they don't understand the material. The second one, maybe it's too difficult for them or maybe too easy for them. So it's really for what I'm doing this, for what I'm doing that, because I already know the concept of some of the material. And the last one, maybe they don't have any role in class. So let's break down more tips about how to make your students engage in class. For the first tips, you may use an interesting hook. Maybe for us as a digital native, we could use a question like, do you know why everyone is addicted to TikTok? Or even in class, well, actually, I am right now as a student. Sometimes I use TikTok to scroll if I get disengaged in class. And by using interesting hook, you can gather students' attention to you and make them have a different perception about how today's meeting with your class. And the second one, you may give all of the student important role. For example, like you have a small group discussion consists of 4 people where you need for them to have a role. Maybe for the first one as a note taker, as a timekeeper, as a presenter for the presentation time, and maybe for the idea generator also. You can give them quote unquote important role for each group discussion, so they will think that they give enough role for the class activity. I think the third one is very more important because I was experienced this thing. Like I think my teacher is not giving a right time allocation. So my friends, I mean, they think it will be good for them to talk about everything around them rather than talking about the material for the whole time class. So that will be good if you could give them time allocation. Maybe for the first material, you give them only 10 minutes to discuss for 4 people in the group. Now, that will be only a minimum, maybe only 2.5 minutes for them to talk about their idea in class, in the group discussion. And the next one is movement. If you have ever experienced this in your elementary, senior, and junior high school, or maybe you as a college student, we use gallery walk. So the product of your project will be presented from you to the whole class, and the rest of your friends will go around to show each other final product. That's very interesting. And also, maybe you need to move from the one group to the next group, to the next group, next group, to present all of your findings. So you could gather more information about other perspective or other group's opinion. Have you ever felt like you notice something? Sorry, I mean, some students are left behind. It's not that far. They're only left for the instruction for the particular material. But because of those small things, students feel like I don't get today's meeting. Have you ever felt that? Maybe in your PLP PP practice? Okay, let's see how we maintain students' engagement and make sure they don't feel left behind. Let's start it. For the very easy one, use the scaffolding method. We do not give students directly a very big problems for them to solve, but start with WH question. You know it, right? What, who, where, when. We can ask them. Identify the material or the problem that may occur in the situation from that relevant from their life. So maybe asking like, what is happening? What was the cause? How? I'm sorry. I mean like, when did it happen? When did it happen? And etc. Then after that, you can move to the higher order thinking skill for asking and how and why about the problem or the phenomena. And the second one is think, pair, share. This is simple things, but maybe it's quite hard to conduct because of the individualism from some people in class, some our students, or maybe students there are not want to be alone. So in the think part, in the think phase, you need to ask all of your students to think about themselves. Then they will work together to talk with their friends, only two of them, and share maybe in front of class or maybe in a group consists of 4 to 5 persons to reshare what they share with their friends in the pair time and when they think about it by themselves. It give all of the students attention to think more and to maybe not reflect yet, but to elaborate what they get and what they get from themselves and what they get from sharing session with their friends. And the next one, when you give time to your students to think about some material or how to solve a problem, you make sure you give enough time for them to think and make sure to check them understanding. So when you let class discuss in a group or when you let each person in class to think about some materials or problems to be solved, you come to them and you ask them, do you get this? Do you get the instruction? Do you know what the material is? Do you get what the concept of the problem solving on this case? Do you need any help? Do you need any assistance? Those simple questions actually gather them attention, gather them expression to tell you what they need, what they want to you. Because in Cambridge curriculum, we now teacher function as facilitator in class. So the main search is from students, but we need to assist them as best as we wish. Cambridge is a new thing for me. Since when I'm in elementary school, senior high school, junior high school, and a kindergarten, I'm in a private school, but in Indonesian curriculum, which is like KTSP, curriculum 2013, and etc. As you know, it was very interesting to learn or getting to know about Cambridge curriculum. Then I'm a little bit curious about what's the difference between Indonesian curriculum, especially on the deep learning that adapt in today's curriculum. So let's see. So there are three main differences on the Cambridge curriculum and the Indonesian curriculum, especially on the deep learning in today's curriculum. For the first one is the goal, the second one is the assessment, and the third one is the method. So what they are? So let's see first on the Cambridge curriculum. Cambridge curriculum is embedded on the system. So it's not only about the method, but about the ecosystem. In the Cambridge curriculum, the assessment is support for all of the whole activities in class, which conduct by the teacher. And also it is consistent and primarily from the A level. While deep learning focus on the understanding and meaning making, which very philosophies. And also deep learning, it's kind of concept or approach which don't have any kind of system that support them nicely. So maybe there are some a little bit differences, a little bit different about the supporting system, but give a big meaning to the practice in class. And as how you know, in Indonesian curriculum, it's already focused on the project-based learning and also student center, but there are some obstacle that students and teacher face in the practice. Is the first one, somehow some teachers are teacher centered, but they don't get it in the class, so they just focus on trying to give students a basic understanding by not involve them in the fun activities, on give a role for students to take an action or to get a better understanding about the particular material. And then if you know about the summative and formative assessment, teacher usually focus on the product, I mean on the final project, not the process when you know A to B to C, but teacher only want to give you a score when they know that you're already in the E, in the F, and etc. So they don't really show your progress, your process to understand about a basic material or to get some concept in some material also. And talking about the summative and formative, actually, teacher focus on your final project, as I mentioned before. So it is summative assessment, not the formative. Meanwhile, the formative means the assessment that held along the activity in class. So the process you know, the process you get understanding and apply the concept of some material. So in the Cambridge curriculum and Indonesian curriculum, especially in the deep learning that apply in the today's curriculum, actually they almost are the same, but in the Indonesian curriculum need more support, like the assessment, the consistency from teacher, and also the ecosystem from school, and also all of the rules that give by the school to students, which not focus on the summative assessment for the final product, but also focus or to give more focus on the formative assessment. So students will trying their best to get the understanding, but to get to deep into the process of their learning. And also in the process, if teacher give time for students to think and reflect for the activity and process to apply the hots and lots about the material, maybe that could reflect on themselves, what they get from school, what they get from some activities, and how they will apply it to the real world situation.